Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and we're getting towards the end, a very specific part of Spielberg's career that I'm starting to really appreciate, which is the first half of the 2000s, where he made some dark, edgy science fiction, and we're talking about War of the Worlds. And I have Adam here, one of my good friends, coming on to chat about. So, Adam, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And you know the drill. Whatever you'd like to shamelessly plug before we start talking about movies.
Yeah, just my letterboxd, Curb Rider, Kerbridger. Yeah, just I'm on there every day, always posting something. Yeah,
Always fun thing to hop on a letterbox and see what all your friends are watching. And if you want
excellent.
to still be their friends. Just kidding. But am I? I don't
Maybe not.
know. I was waiting for somebody to say, not gonna lie, I was waiting for somebody to hop on for Werewolf by Night to be like, ugh, more mid trash from Marvel Phase 4, and then I would be
No,
like, punch them through the screen.
I'm glad I passed that test.
Because, spoiler alert, I want to talk about that later because I had a blast with that for 55 minutes. But
Yeah.
for those who haven't checked out my show before, there's three parts. We have coming attractions. So we'll talk about the releases for this week, which is October 14th, dead of spooky season. Our feature, War of the Worlds, and we have some very exciting recommendations to make that. Some of these things I definitely really want to chat with you about because I know Adam has a few great ones that I got very excited about too. But to start with our releases, really the only wide release this weekend in the US is Halloween Ends. Does it though? At least for now, until somebody else reboots this franchise and endlessly keeps milking John Carpenter's film
Yeah.
because they'll do it until the end of time. And I have to quote him. Um, they should never have made anything past the first movie, but I'm not going to complain about the royalty checks.
Yeah, that
So
sounds about right. I was going, well, why would you?
no, why not? But so not to for me personally, I just put down Halloween Ends because I really liked the first one. That David Gordon Green and Danny McBride made,
Mm.
which surprisingly funny, especially the babysitting scene. That kid though, that kid stole the show. He should have been the star of the second movie instead of what we got. But I'm at the point where it's like I was not impressed by Kills as a whole, and I just felt like they're trying to milk it for a third, like to make a trilogy out of this. And I'm like, please give a satisfying ending to this franchise and end it. So I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm also excited to actually have Jamie Lee Curtis back in the fold here instead of just being in a hospital bed the whole entire movie.
Easy money, easy money.
You know what? That's a fair point, and she deserves it. She put in a lot of
Yeah,
work in her career.
I rate
Uh,
Jamie Lee. She's good.
yeah, you know what? Yeah, she what was she was in a hospital room and the lobby. Whole entire movie. Didn't really have to
Well,
do much to get that paycheck for that movie, did she?
no.
Except be one of the most compelling characters in the film. At least she didn't yell "evil" and "evil dies tonight." Um, but so in general, I am a big fan of the Halloween franchise because I love John Carpenter. I'm hopeful they could stick the landing because they did great with the first one. They're batting 500, so let's at
Right.
least end with a good note. But Adam, you have an interesting one that you wanted to talk about, which is getting a lighter release in the U.S.
Yeah, probably because it's a Korean film.
Yep.
Decision to Leave by Park Chan-wook. Um, yeah, I've actually seen this movie. It came out a bit earlier in Australia, at film festivals and so forth. Um, it's probably odds-on favourite to win Best Foreign Film at the Oscars next year. It is really fantastic. It's a really interesting concept of a romantic love story about a detective hunting a serial killer who he falls in love with effectively. He either moves down back to his actual wife or fiance. I can't remember. It's been a couple of months since I've seen it. And then she follows him to the same town, and they bump into each other. And yeah, it's not just that aspect of it. It's kind of like a bit basic instincty where you kind of think you know she's definitely the killer, but it always plants that doubt: is she maybe the killer though? Is she actually killing these husbands that she hooked up with? Until you finally figure out. I don't know if I'm spoiling stuff. Maybe mute me for a bit. But it's not just that aspect of the storytelling. It's also Park Chan's direction. There's some incredible visuals here. Incredible shots, just full stop. Just from bird's eye view or point of views of even dead bodies and so forth. Like it's not grotesque in any way. It's just really artfully directed and yeah, phenomenal film. I really loved it.
You got my attention by saying that's a front runner for international film, because I know
I think so. Yeah.
so far what I've seen, I'm all on the official competition train, and I'm really hoping that gets some love at the Oscars this coming year. Um, just between Penelope Cruz, Antonio Banderas, and unfortunately, I can't remember the other actor who isn't like a global star, but the three of them are amazing in that film. But I'm glad that this film, Decision to Leave, got picked up by Mubi, because then it'll be on Mubi soon. So then I can. So, because realistically, that's probably what's going to happen. So, because I doubt that maybe I'll pick up some traction and be at one of the indie theaters around me, but definitely grab my attention. That's the point of this. We want to get you all excited about upcoming attractions. And then next week, talk about Black Adam.
Which not with me.
I am not excited about. Except for Pierce Brosnan. Literally the only thing that I'm excited about, because I like Pierce Brosnan.
It just feels like the rock button in on the Shazam franchise. And I like Shazam. I really like Shazam. DC finally done something right, and then The Rock has to come in and I think ruin it. But anyway, we'll see.
And has the shit talking. He's like, I don't want my Black Adam to get turned into a joke because of Shazam. It's just like, wow, man. That was a low blow. And you know what was sad? I saw Lyle Crocodile today, and they did show the Shazam trailer. And I heard kids be like, when's that coming out? I'm like, never. At this rate.
Yeah.
What I think it's next summer now. I don't know.
Is it really?
Is it in the spring? I don't know. I'm not going to believe it until I actually walk into a theater and watch it, to be frank.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I think it is spring, and then Flash is summer, and then Aquaman is fall or winter here. So I think it's like an April-ish release.
So April makes sense, to be honest.
Yeah.
Around Easter time.
Because everyone's like, oh, it ran from Avatar. No, it ran from Warner Brothers' debt.
Yeah.
So, because they didn't have enough money to promote it at this point, and that's really sad. A sad state of affairs.
Sure they don't.
The once great Warner Brothers. But maybe someday. But those are other coming attractions. So, Halloween will end either in a theater or on Peacock, because they did that again too. Because in the US, you can watch it on Peacock. And not going to lie, I am. Because I'm having a bunch of people over next Saturday night for a Halloween movie night. And that will be
nice. Nice.
So we can see if it ends together. For reals this time.
Anyway, it'll end when people stop buying tickets.
Now, not to judge a film that hasn't come out, but I can almost guarantee you this film is better. And we're here to talk about War of the Worlds. Which this is, just to put out there, this is my second time watching this film, and I definitely had a whole other level of appreciation for it this time around, because from what I remember, I'm just like it was a big budgeted like sci-fi blockbuster. But this is sitting and really watching this for a second time at 30 instead of like in my early 20s was a very different experience. And I feel like in the context of Spielberg made AI, Minority Report, and this within like a 5 year span and was like, you
Hmm.
know what? I've made Close Encounters and E.T. and Jurassic Park, but I think I could go harder. And
Yeah,
with the science fiction, and
yeah.
to give a little bit more context too, just for me personally, I have been an avid reader since I was a child, and I loved science fiction. Like that was my genre of books that like I fell in love with. And I was a big Jules Verne fan when I was a kid, read a lot of Jules Verne, and then got into H.G. Wells. And so like I read Isle of Moreau, I read The Invisible Man, I read The Time Machine, and War of the Worlds. I've probably seen like I'm a big fan of like the Rod Taylor Time Machine film. So like I've
Hmm.
watched that quite a few times. And obviously like the Universal horror Claude Rains Invisible Man, I'm a big fan of, watched that plenty of times. I have not seen the 50s version of this, and I don't think I've sat and listened to the whole entire Orson Welles.
Mm.
Confusing. Two Wells. Two Wells makes a bunch of people freak out. Um, his whole like live performance of War of the Worlds. But like I had never watched this when it came out, and I never came around to it until I was already in college. But as somebody who loves science fiction, I'm always down for some sci-fi, and you have this adaptation of War of the Worlds, which
Mhm.
as somebody from New Jersey, this had a whole other level of meaning. The fact that this movie came out only a couple of years after 9/11, and
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
tell
hmm,
because Spielberg was saying some stuff um,
yeah.
in regards to that. But Adam, what made you want to come on to talk about War of the Worlds?
I look, I've loved the film since I first saw it. Obviously, being Australian, I didn't pick up on the 9/11 themes behind that, and honestly, until I read someone else's review this morning before I joined you. But the reason, yeah, I just think it's one of Spielberg's most underrated films, and I think he's doing some God level direction
Mm,
in this
yeah,
film. There's just a few
absolutely.
shots in here that just blew me away, which we'll probably talk about a bit later. But that's the main reason. I think it's really underrated. I loved it for a lot of reasons. Yeah, that's why I wanted to come and talk about it.
Yeah, I one of the things that stood out to me the most, and like, you know what, let me get this out of the way, because like, as somebody, because like, I remember when that happened, 9/11. I was in like third grade. I was 10 years old, and watching this
Screw
film,
you, man.
huh?
Screw you. I was like 23 or 24.
I was sitting there watching this film, and the character saying, "Who's attacking us? Who terrorists are attacking us?" I'm like, "Oh." And then Tim Robbins' character in particular,
Mm,
when he was talking about America and how we're not going to lay down for this, and he just wanted to
yeah.
rush in and attack an enemy we knew nothing about. And I'm just
Hmm.
sitting there like,
Hmm. Yeah.
huh. And
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting subtext to be
Yeah.
layering into this film because um, I remember, so this is going to seem like a weird aside, but it's an important one. So I'm a big fan of Breakfast All Day, the YouTube channel. They started as What the Flick, and right now it's basically just Christy Lemire and Alonzo Duralde, who are both two renowned critics. Alonzo Duralde writes for The Wrap, and one of his biggest criticisms of Joel Cohen's Tragedy of Macbeth is that it really didn't go out of its way to make it feel important in 2021. Why are you remaking this now? And to be frank, Frances McDormand wanted to play Lady Macbeth, And
Yeah.
her husband's like, we'll do it. And
Yeah,
like,
that's it.
yeah, so like you don't need a whole lot of reason to like remake Shakespeare, right? Because like you just want to do some Shakespeare. But
Yeah.
this film feels like there's a reason why it was relevant in
Yeah.
2005. And
Yeah.
because like it doesn't go back in time, it doesn't take place in like the late 1800s or anything like that when Wells wrote this. It feels so relevant in 2005 because there's just such a difference in fear of
Yes. Yeah.
things today, and especially, and I'm going to speak for American culture because I'm going to speak for all America, but there is a growing sense of fear of the others, and
Yes.
that has become such a forefront of politics and society at this point, and it just feels like it's gotten stronger throughout my lifetime, and
Hmm.
it's become such a big part of the forefront of our perspective on things. And this film really draws on all that paranoia, and
Absolutely.
that's why I feel like this film feels so relevant and poignant. And like this was an end of June summer blockbuster from Steven Spielberg, and I'm sitting there
Mm.
watching this, I'm like, this is going way harder in so many ways than it needed to appease a bunch of people shoving their face full of popcorn. And also,
Yeah.
the audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes is rotten. It's like a
Yeah.
42%. And I'm
Yeah.
guessing people
Yeah.
expected some big fun, like Independence Day kind of thing.
That's
And
right.
like, this is not that.
No.
So,
Yeah, I think this film does get a lot of its audience. Yeah, the overall hatred for this movie. I think a lot of it is from expectations not being met.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels. Everything you just said was really, yeah, it was great. Honestly, like I can't argue with anything that you just said.
Yeah, it's such a because like it feels like such a stripped down idea. It's like there's been so many films about invasions and alien invasions, and like this
Mm,
just hit different. And some of the places where this film hit really hard for me is so like one, the first time those beams shoot down and people just gone. They're like, there's no trace of people after they get attacked by those aliens and those beams.
yeah,
You're just like,
well, except there's dust on him.
which
It's horrific.
that scene is so
Yeah,
uncomfortable when he gets
yeah,
home and he's just covered in human ash,
yeah.
and you're just like,
The trauma is so well portrayed there, especially when Dakota taps him on the shoulder and he's on the table, and Tom's reaction there is so brilliant. Like it's so well performed. I think like it just feels like he's catatonic and he's literally shits his pants when his daughter
yeah.
touches him on the shoulder. It's
Oh,
fantastically
and
done.
just another piece of Tom Cruise is a great actor hidden inside of just the
Yeah,
world's biggest movie star. Because like
yeah,
there's some great moments in this film from his performance, but like that was so unnerving. And legitimately, I'm going to be rewatching Munich next, so like I'll hold
mm,
off making this statement 100% true, but like I feel like this is the third most traumatic film that Spielberg's ever made. And that's like
after
behind
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. And like
No,
this is a adaptation of H.G. Wells' book. Like
fictional. Yeah,
the other
yeah,
things about World War II and the Holocaust. And like
yeah,
like that moment was great. And Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning were both great in that scene. Her needing to go to the bathroom,
yeah, yeah. And
finds
at the
that
river.
lake, and it's just like
Yeah.
at one point it's like, oh, there's one dead body. That's oh my god, and
Yeah,
it's just a river of people, and you're just like, I'm even kind of getting like chills just
Mm.
thinking about that scene because you're just like, oh my, this is
I mean, it's if it is a bit convenient that as soon as she's there, like really,
yeah.
but it still hits hard. Yeah, still hits very hard.
And the train from hell where
Yeah,
that train just drives by full speed in flames, and you're just like,
another very effective 12 seconds. It's incredible.
like how many
It's like
more ways?
Snowpiercer.
Yeah, how many more ways is Spielberg gonna make us feel like absolutely destroyed inside? Because
Mm,
like there's
yeah,
so much trauma in this film, and
yeah.
one of the most poignant scenes in the whole film, from both like a shock value and I think thematically, is when they're driving the minivan and a
Hmm.
group of people
Yeah,
swarm in.
yeah.
And because, like, one, it's a really tense and uncomfortable scene. People start pulling guns. But
Hmm.
thematically thinking about how do we deal with tr- trauma and danger, and it's we freak the hell out,
As a collective, yeah.
yeah, and lash out.
Well, 2020 kind of proved that too, right? That's kind of it's yeah, human nature is always going to be that way. It's survival of the fittest, and we're always going to look out for number one, and that's exactly what that scene shows. Looking out for
Mhm.
number one, and your number ones, obviously, because Tom's all about saving his kids. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like that scene's also important from a character development piece too,
Hmm.
because like at the beginning of the film, like Tom Cruise is a shitty dad, like,
Well,
like
yeah, and that's a kind of a running theme for Spielberg. Like the absent father
yeah,
is a running theme in a lot of his films because that was his life growing up, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in that moment where he's like, I just want my daughter. I feel like that was one of the first moments
Mm.
in the film where he felt like that development settling in and like,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
we don't care about this vehicle that could get us out of here. I just want to make sure that I have my daughter and she's safe with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like him making sure that he gets Robbie, who got the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, yeah. But there's another scene that mirrors that is when Robbie is going to fight. He wants to fight with the army. Like Robbie is he's the opposite of his father. He sees Ray, Tom Cruise, as the absent father who only cares about himself. But he wants to fight. You know, he wants to fight and help other people. Like he wants
Yeah.
to fight these aliens. And there's that scene where he's running off when they're on the hills, and Dakota's being kidnapped by these other two people. That's another scene like the car scene where he's just like he has to make Rosemary's choice, or Rosemary's Sophie's choice,
Yeah.
sorry, and he has to choose one over the other, right? So he lets the daughter's the one in the bigger danger. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And he finally lets Robbie go do what Robbie feels like he
yeah,
needs to do. And I love that
yeah,
one moment to build off of that from a scene or two earlier when they're on the boat and Robbie goes helping
hmm,
those people hanging from it. And you see
yes,
the look of
yeah,
pride
yes, absolutely.
on Tom Cruise's face. And that's like the first moment where Tom Cruise like shows like, oh my God, I'm proud of my
Yep,
son. And
this is what he's about. Yeah, and
yeah.
I'm not that bloke. I'm not that person. Yeah, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah,
And like that scene obviously with the van and like after they get in the diner and what's going on outside, I'm just like, oh my God.
mm,
I'm like, well, people are
yeah,
terrible, and that's very accurate. Um,
yep.
and then I feel like probably the last big scene that I'm thinking of that's captures like that traumatic visuals and stuff like that is obviously when everything starts blowing up after Robbie goes over the hill and they get into this basement with Tim Robbins' character, Academy Award winner Tim Robbins, and you see what they're doing with people
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and sucking blood and then terraforming everything. And you're just like, okay, this is
Mm,
this is dark. And this film for a I'm gonna keep going back to this point for an end of June summer blockbuster has way too hard of an edge than you would ever expect something like this to have, and it
Yeah, yeah,
benefits from it so much.
yeah. It's a fantastic film all around. But that's I've kind of had the not talking about the basement scene just yet, but touching on the aliens, how they were treating the humans and basically carrying them around in like human clay pots and using it was basically like they were snacking on them for energy
Yeah,
as they were destroying the landscape, right? And then just pissing them out, I guess,
yeah.
over the landscape. I don't know if it's terraforming it for themselves, but yeah, it was really interesting point.
Because what I gather from that is like it's helping their foliage grow because like those
Yes,
roots are
yeah,
coming out and everything. Because also like
mm,
not to jump to the end of the film, I won't get into it, but like one of the scenes where you start realizing things are turning is because Tom Cruise touches one of the roots and it like
yes,
disintegrates in his hand.
crumbles.
Which
Yeah.
we'll definitely talk about the ending. But this film is so like I was sitting there in the beginning of this film, the opening act of this film, where they're escaping New York. But one little
Oh,
detail that I have to put out there that I appreciate is this father and son are at conflict when the son's wearing a Red Sox cap and the dad's wearing
yeah,
a Yankees cap.
Boston, is that how it is?
Well, and at first I'm like, well, that's a fun little detail, but then you realize how much deeper it is because the mom's
Yeah,
visiting her family in Boston, and
yeah.
that's just showing how much
Where his
that
loyalty
Robbie
is.
is connected with his mother and disconnected from
Mm,
his father. So like, yeah,
mm.
it's a noticeable detail that like if you like baseball and know baseball, you could tell that they're at odds with each other. It's like you're hard pressed to find two more hated rivals in baseball, Red
Right,
Sox and
yeah,
the Yankees.
yeah.
But the fact that it also represents the Red Sox hat represents his connection to his mother in conflict with
Hmm.
his lack of connection with his father. And like Tom Cruise is such a douche at the beginning of this
Yeah,
movie. And
yeah.
he plays it so well, but then he plays everything else so well. And that's why there's a reason that Tom Cruise has been a leading man for decades.
Yeah.
And it shows in this film because did this film need that like a film like this did it need a deep thoughtful performance from its leading character? No, but this
No,
film
not at
goes
all.
there and Spielberg wants it
Yeah,
to go there and it's better for it.
yeah, yeah. It's much more meaningful than just a summertime blockbuster. It's actually, yeah, it's very deeply thought out. Yeah, you're 100% right with that. It's great.
Yeah, because at the core of this film the heart and soul of it, because it's a Spielberg film, it has to have heart and soul to it. um
Mm,
and that's what he brings to the table, and it's the family dynamic at the center of it and the relationship, and
yeah.
like the little tragic moments of like you can tell that Ray is so out of his element once they get to his wife's house trying to feed his
Yes.
kids,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah. I'm allergic to
I
peanut butter.
I love the line, here's two slices for you and two slices for
Yeah.
Robbie, two slices for me, and one for the house.
One for the
It's like
house.
he's just trying to keep his cool because he has no idea what the hell he's doing. But then the
Yeah.
tragic moment where he doesn't even know his daughter's allergic to peanuts.
Yeah. Since when? She goes, birth. I love that
Yeah.
delivery from Dakota. It's such a great delivery.
Yeah. Dakota Fanning was such a hot commodity at
She
this
was,
time
yeah.
as a child
Yeah, she
actor.
was
And
everywhere.
I hope that eventually, as an adult actress, she starts getting more traction because
Yeah.
I know she was
Was
in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but she was in it for like
hmm
10,
Yeah,
15
one
minutes.
scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at that. And but like she was what, and it's so interesting because her sister's I think a bigger
Her
star
sister's the
than her.
one. Absolutely, yeah. Elle's
Yeah,
the one getting all the roles. Yeah. Maybe Dakota
agreed.
had enough and she's just chilling.
That's
It's not
fair.
just choosing her roles. Yeah.
Mhm. But
Like,
I like Tom Cruise is great. Dakota Fanning's great. I don't like the actor who plays Robbie. Like I'm not gonna remember him much from
no,
this film. Like
no.
he does fine, but
I
I
did look him
love
up after this, and he does a lot of TV. No, yeah, he doesn't do anything major that I see anyway.
yeah. And this is one of those films where it's like you only needed the core, and like obviously like you have like Miranda Otto who plays his wife,
Mm,
who's coming off of like Lord of the Rings, and
yes.
like she's in a couple of scenes, and they're important scenes, obviously, like him flirting with her pregnant. Um,
You look
my
great.
wife was so weirded out by that interaction,
Really?
and
Wow.
because it's like,
That
because like
suits you.
it's
Yeah.
looking good, and she's like, "What? My wife's like, "What? Looking good, pregnant?" So weird. But like, obviously, that's trying to show like he's not. You can tell he didn't want to end things,
Mm,
but you can tell
yeah.
why she probably did.
But he
Because
can't change. He couldn't change.
no,
The
and I
kind of
love that
the
moment.
subtext.
Yeah, and by the end, he does, and you can see that. And whatever the hell his name is, her new husband, just behind her
Yeah.
parents in the background. I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, you're a chump. um,
Yeah.
but this is one of I love Spielberg films because you could watch this film and see a ton of like future stars or people that were
Mm,
having a moment. Cause like
yeah.
his neighbor, the woman, while they're
Yeah.
looking at the cloud, is Amy.
Amy Ryan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Holly
Yeah.
from The Office, and
Yeah.
also most recently from like Only Murders in the Building and stuff. And I'm just like,
Gone Baby Gone.
yeah, and I'm just like, wait a minute. And then
Yeah.
I did a lot of that during this movie. Like David Harbour is one of the people like working at the boat.
Is he? I didn't recognize
He's
him.
a dock worker. And then
Ah.
um the
The,
woman that he recognizes at the boat, the mom and the daughter,
oh.
she's in
Yeah.
Abbott Elementary, which is a new
Oh,
pet show
okay.
on ABC. And I'm just like, I was looking through like IMDb and I'm like, is that who I think it is? And then it comes on, I'm like, oh my God, it is. And
The
like,
guy who also plays his mechanic, I've seen him in a few things as well.
yeah, he's a,
Manny.
I, you know what's funny? What I thought in my head was if Tom Sizemore was still like working, like in
Yeah.
like a big way, that totally could have been him.
Yeah.
Because like Tom Sizemore was huge from like 95 to like from like because he had Heat, he had Saving Private Ryan, and he
Mm.
had a couple other films in that like period. And like now he pops up every so often in like
Yeah, I've
VOD
never been a
stuff.
fan of Tom Sizemore. Never, yeah, never was a fan of him.
But
Some
like
vibe he has.
it I feel like he works in very specific ways and he plays the same person more or
Yeah,
less.
I
Um
kind of confuse him with Michael Madsen sometimes. Actually, they're almost interchangeable. It might be just the way but yeah, they
they
seem interchangeable.
play similar type characters and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Obviously, Michael
yeah.
Madsen's big thing was uh, Mr.
Reservoir Dogs.
Mr. Blonde. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like that was peak Michael Madsen. And obviously
yeah,
he's talking about like Joe Gage in the Hateful Eight. Just like popping up there. I'm like, the only way he's getting work now is he's popping up in Tarantino
Tarantino.
films.
Yeah.
But like and then obviously you needed a very like it's such an important role, but it's not like a big part of the film. Is that who owns that house, and they're in that basement, and Tim Robbins just won
Mm,
an Oscar for Mystic River like 2 years before this. So like, well,
yep.
probably when they were filming this, he literally just won his Oscar for Mystic River. So like that was a small but pivotal role, and he gives an important performance, and that is a character changing moment when Tom Cruise closes that
Yeah.
door.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's a great shot, man. Like I've written, that's one of the shots I've written in my notes is that when Tim Robbins is digging out the hole, and then there's the shot of Tom Cruise silhouetted in the doorway behind him. That's a fantastic shot, like a proper horror genre shot, I think, because you
Which
know what's coming.
what I didn't get is why IMDb only has this as like sci-fi action adventure. I'm like, you
Yeah.
could put like thriller. Like this is borderline horror film. Like there's horrific things that you see throughout this film, and it's intense and
Oh
scary.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
how's this not a horror thriller on some level? But to
Yeah.
me, it is because like, and that's the thing. Spielberg can do that, and he has shown that throughout his career. It's funny because one of
Hmm.
his first films, way back when I started, when I was doing like Rowan was coming on for all of them, doing like the made for TV movies. Rowan and Foster, he made a straight up horror movie made for
Yeah.
TV, and like I didn't like the film. It's actually my least favorite film that I've watched so far is Spielberg's, but like you can feel
Okay.
the horror elements worked because
Yeah.
he he's a masterful director. That beginning, going back to that beginning part, when that overpass starts ripping
Yeah.
up those houses, ripping like
Yeah.
this is from
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah. It looks really good.
I'm just like the special
Yeah.
effects in this are ridiculous, and I
Yeah.
love how true to like true to the design they are to the alien ships and stuff from
Hmm.
like the original story because they look like giant viruses,
Okay.
and I think that's important as how things get solved. But like it's very interesting, and you know their designs are very particular. We finally get to see the aliens at one point, and like they're not like big hulking aliens. They're like these strange fragile things, but their technology is terrifying, and they're way more advanced than us, at least in some ways.
Yeah.
But like it's such an interesting thing, like the special effects, and I love Kaminsky's cinematography mixed with the design of these ships because like it looms up and just like boom, and the two
Mm.
giant eye looking lights on all these ships, that the second that appears you're just like we're in trouble.
Yeah. There's a very deliberate. We're talking about Kaminsky's cinematography. There's a very deliberate white washout when the aliens first appears from under the street. Like I don't know, it's kind of a weird choice to me because it does look very bright and what have you. But I guess yeah, look, I can't put my finger on why that
His
is the choice.
cinematography in general, and especially in this time period of Spielberg's films, are not natural at all. Like you
Mm.
watch AI, Minority Report, or this, they all have a very specific kind of lighting. They feel very
Yeah,
artificial and unnerving. And I think it helps create such a very specific like stamp of personality and atmosphere about it. And like I could see where it could be off-putting to some people because it's so different and weird, but like I feel like it helps create an unnerving experience in the film. And you
yeah,
could definitely feel that, and you know with the storm and the lightning and everything going on there. And you know there's some moments in the film where you're just sitting there like I feel in danger because like just watching this
yeah,
and seeing how hulking these things are and how Spielberg shoots, it's like this is why you give Spielberg anything and he can elevate it.
yeah, yeah. He absolutely, and it's not just him. It's his list of usual suspects that helped this
Yep.
film out too. Like, but sitting here right now, I really can't remember much of John Williams' score. Um, but I do always remember someone who never gets mentioned enough or gives enough credit for Spielberg's success is Michael Kahn, his editor, who
Mhm.
is probably the greatest editor I've ever noticed. I'll say noticed, not that I know, but just every yeah, and without those guys behind him, I don't think Spielberg would be. he's created an amazing team who he always, you know, plays with. Even David Koepp, who some of his stuff, I'm not a big fan of a lot of his screenplays, but when he works with Spielberg, it always seems to come off pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they seem
Anyway.
to be a great pair together. And
Mm.
in terms of Williams, there's a couple of scenes where I felt like the score really helped set the unnerving and haunting tone of the film. But you're right, like the score as a whole, I don't remember. And I'm trying
Mm.
to remember exactly how it sounds, but there's a couple of scenes where it's just like they like he went hard a couple of scenes. Like it's not like Jurassic Park, where you remember the whole entire score through the whole entire movie,
Yeah.
or Indiana
Yeah.
Jones. But there's a couple of very important scenes where I feel like it hits, and you're just like,
I think I noticed this. I think I noticed the sound design more than the score, because the sound design is uh, the sound
I
of those aliens, and it's just fantastic. It's
the
just a great production.
I just finished writing my article before we hopped on that I wrote for Scribe, my Wasteland Vintage Roadshow
Mhm.
for this, and I'm just like, the sound design of the aliens seemed like they let Hans Zimmer walk into the booth, and it was like boom, like that's exactly what they sound like. And
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
interesting is it's not quite the same, but it's reminiscent of Oblivion. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've seen that, but with like the drones in it, they
Yeah,
talk in like
yeah.
dubstep, basically. And like it kind of
That's
has
great.
that kind of feel. And also, to make a connection to a film that came out this year, Nope. Obviously, Nope was
Mm.
heavily
Mm.
influenced by Jaws.
Yes.
And then I'm sitting there watching this film and being like, I think it was also heavily influenced by War of the Worlds.
I think it's just Spielberg all around.
Yeah,
Very just Spiel.
and
It's Jordan Peele doing Spielberg.
mhm, and doing it well. But like you could tell
Yeah.
some of the specific designs of that craft. I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want to go into spoiling Nope, but like there's
Mm.
a couple of moments, especially with how the ship takes in humans in this, and
Mm.
I'm just like,
Mm.
I'm like,
Through its cloaca. You
I'm
mean
just
from
like,
the clay pot
yeah,
up through its cloaca?
yeah, exactly. Which grenades, get down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was, and like I got Nope vibes a little bit, and I'm just like,
Mm.
there's, you could
Yeah.
definitely tell Jordan Peele's watched a lot of Spielberg, um,
Hmm.
and that's so interesting because like this is a, I don't know how many times they've adapted War of the Worlds, but like even if they didn't adapt War of the Worlds, there's so many movies that are just War of the Worlds out
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
it's such an old text because like this was written in the 1890s. Like
Right.
this is from over almost 130 years ago. This book came out, and there's been so
Bonkers.
much influence, and like this film can still make such a big impact in 2005, like 110 years later, is so impressive.
Mm. Yeah. Very, very impressive.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess two of the biggest things that I feel like we could get into a little bit more depth. So, do you have anything that you wanted to specifically talk about in terms of like the basement part with like Tim Robbins and stuff like that?
I think, um, yeah, probably, because I mean it is a tonal shift in the film, which does create a lot of problems for a lot of viewers. But for me, I think it's super important because I guess they might have run out of some budget by then, because it is a pretty frenetic film up until then. Like it's
Yeah.
shit happening all the time. It's fast paced. It's full on tension and scares and bloody blood. This is a really more relaxed, two different sides of scaring the shit out of you type of
Yeah.
aspects of filmmaking. Because this is quiet, it's suspenseful as hell. It's like almost Hitchcockian in its suspense. It's
Mirror.
really frightening because, well, yeah, because you're dealing with an unhinged character who, like you said, he just wants to fight. But if he wanted to fight these guys, why is he in his bloody basement? That's maybe one problem with the film, with that character anyway. Maybe not the film, but yeah, just that with the alien tentacle head just snaking through and then
Yeah.
playing hide and seek with it. I mean, that's kind of seems a bit silly, but it's fantastic. Like, it's just fantastic filmmaking. Like, that must have been a 2-week shoot just in itself, that
Yep.
5-minute piece.
Yeah, it's so detailed. And then after that, then they bring the actual aliens in, and you have all that like
Yeah,
sticking
yeah.
around. And then you have that conflict. And I feel like thematically, that sequence of the film is so important because one, you have Robbins representing that kind of attitude about like we need to fight and
The
stuff like
American
that.
attitude, yeah.
And then he also needs to push Ray to where Ray needs to end. Because like
Yeah.
Ray does something very permanent and
Mm,
morally not great, but he
yeah.
does it for the sake of his child.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that is like the last nail in this new Ray. And obviously,
Yes.
it's traumatic, and he has that great moment with his daughter. They fall asleep, and then bam, heads back again, and
Yep.
then we're off to the races again. To the
Yeah.
end of the film, and I think that scene's important. Like you said, it does slow the film down, though, but it's important to set up more context to why the aliens might be there. Because, like, obviously, we understand
Hmm.
they buried these ships. They've been planning this for a long time. And they come back to take Earth. And we get to see what Earth's going to look like if they take it. And those visuals are like the red roots and like
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
so creepy and
Yep.
just that visual of it, and obviously thematically. And I think they did a good bit of casting because I think Tim Robbins wound up doing a really good job with that character.
Tim Robbins is, oh, yeah, I've always loved Tim Robbins. He's solid every time. Yeah, from The Player, Shawshank, you keep going with Tim Robbins. He's gone missing. I don't know why. He must have retired, but yeah, it's a shame.
I'm trying to remember. Like I remember him being in Green Lantern randomly
Oh,
because
for real? Okay.
yeah, because he was Peter Sarsgaard's dad, right? Like in that, who winds up becoming the villain, his giant ass head. Peter Sarsgaard does. But like, yeah, I don't. I've only seen Tim Robbins pop up in like little things as of late. But I don't know if he's really had like. Obviously, this wasn't a big role either, but it was a Spielberg film, and it was
Mm,
a pivotal, important role in a particular sequence of
yes.
the film. And outside of the three Tom Cruise's two kids and his wife, he's the biggest, most substantial character in the whole rest of the film.
Absolutely. I think for an actor, if Spielberg comes knocking, you answer the call, right? Like, you
Right.
answer the door. And so that's why.
Unless
Can I
you're
just pause for 1 second there?
Mhm.
I was just scrolling. Sorry, I was just scrolling through to find Tim Robbins in my IMDb, and I've just discovered something that will really interest you. I'm not sure if you remember, but there's a boy in a church in the film. It's just he's credited as boy in church, and it's uncredited in the film. It's Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum is in War of the Worlds.
There you go.
Sorry, I was just as I was scrolling, I saw that name as I was scrolling through my. Sorry,
Well,
I thought that was worth bringing up.
when I do my Lincoln episode with my friend Haley, and I was about to bring up Lincoln, I'm going to be sitting there like, look who it is. 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 Like
I love films like that. I love it.
the opening scene has like Adam Driver, Dane DeHaan, and David Oyelowo in it. And it's just like,
Yeah, right.
boom,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it just goes from there. But I was going to bring up Lincoln because apparently Daniel Day-Lewis is the only one who keeps telling Spielberg no, because it took him years to convince him to do Lincoln.
Ah, is that right? Is that right?
Daniel Day-Lewis said no. He went to Liam Neeson
Oh,
to do it next,
that would not be right.
which what I love about that bit of casting, and this is going down a rabbit hole, but we'll get back to finish the ending in a second. But so Liam Neeson is Lincoln. There's one younger actor that I've heard people say looks a lot like a younger Liam Neeson, aka Benjamin Walker, who played Abraham Lincoln in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And I'm like, can you
Oh,
imagine if Liam Neeson actually did play Lincoln and then his younger doppelganger played Abraham Lincoln in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
that would be amazing.
Which also
What?
Benjamin Walker right now is on Rings of Power. He's like the king of the elves that like is not a fan of Galadriel at all. Uh,
Okay.
but like I thought that was interesting. And Liam Neeson's a great actor. Would have been interesting to see him play Lincoln, but like can't go wrong with Daniel Day-Lewis. He is the best. So like
Yeah. Oh, what a very different film that would be with Liam Neeson. Like
yeah,
Oscar Schindler playing Abraham Lincoln. That just does not sit
it would have been a
with
little
me
bit
at
more
all.
physically imposing. Because like
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
because like Liam Neeson's just a really big dude. Uh,
Yeah.
but like it's so interesting because Spielberg's even made some careers after this with like
Mm.
I'm not, let me rephrase that. I'm not going to say that he made Mark Rylance's career, but he put Mark Rylance on the map
Oh,
because of Bridge of
yes. Yeah.
Spies and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So it's interesting to see because like Spielberg has
Which
probably
we'll be doing in about 6 weeks, maybe.
yeah yeah we're getting into the home stretch really
Yeah.
with Spielberg here because um this is going to be the last stuff I'm going to talk about before we go to the ending of the film. I have some thoughts about that. But yeah, we're going to be doing that sometime later November because Spielberg
Mm.
all wraps up at the end of December. And then we'll be on to the next one. But the ending of this movie. So
Can't wait to hear what you say.
thank you, Morgan Freeman, for making this easier for me to take in because I do appreciate the narration that they have at the end of the movie. And I'm like, okay, I could see where they're trying to go with it. Like, it's supposed to be like a uniquely human thing that the trauma that we've been through makes us stronger.
Hmm.
Because like we've built up this immunity to all these diseases that are on our planet and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I thought if any ending from a book that you might rethink doing, it might be this one. Because like just from like a satisfaction standpoint where people are just like they
Yeah.
died from a cold, like we're supposed to take them
What?
down and be heroic and stuff like that. And
Could have been herpes. You don't know. Because they were just eating people and spitting them out. You don't know what disease it actually was, but
they probably got
it was something.
everything. Probably got everything.
Yeah.
Blood
That's it.
diseases could have been
Yeah.
AIDS, honestly,
Yeah, absolutely.
because like
Yeah.
they were just slurping up people's blood and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Public service announcement. This is why you should not drink blood, I guess. But like
Unless you're a vampire. Otherwise, go for your life.
maybe Spielberg will do a vampire movie. I don't know.
Oh, dude, don't put that in my head. That'd be amazing.
Why haven't you done it yet, Steven?
I
But
want
like
to see Remake Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's what I want to see.
I want
Spielberg
Anthony
doing
Hopkins
Dracula.
only if Anthony Hopkins comes back again to play Van Helsing. Because I want to see him yelling again.
And Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman needs to be
Yeah,
Dracula again.
just no Keanu. No
Yeah.
offense, Keanu Reeves, but like that was
Tom
out.
Holland. Let's do a recasting of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, 100% they would cast Tom Holland. But the ending of this movie, I just feel like they could have chose a different ending at this point. I know they were being very faithful to the story because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's satisfying enough of an ending from a film perspective, but I do feel like they do save it for the most part with the fact that by the end, it is really about the family
that's
aspect,
right.
and that's the
Yeah,
real ending of the film that we get is them reconnecting. So,
the aliens are a MacGuffin to a degree. Like
mhm.
they're there as a utensil to tell the family story.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Um, I have no issue with the ending, but I do understand other people's issues with it. If we had have gotten that Hollywood ending, I probably would have not upset me, but it would have annoyed me more. And plus, it would have made the movie an extra half hour longer, at least.
it
So,
would have
and
had to
then
be.
people would have
Yeah,
been, yeah, then people would have complained, this movie's too long. So,
and this was
it's give and take.
this was his first movie under 2 hours in a while, like
Yeah,
a while. I would have to think maybe like Always was the last time that he had a movie that was under 2 hours.
how about Jurassic Park?
Oh, maybe.
That's a really good point, though. Like, 'cause you're right. Like, he does make some long ass movies.
Yeah, because yeah, actually, let's fact check that. Because like Jurassic Park, I don't know. I feel like it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. I knew it was
Is
like
it? Okay.
slightly over 2 hours. Like the Terminal that I just watched last week, that was 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't need to be that long.
No, that didn't need to be long.
No.
Catch Me If You Can, Minority Report, AI, they're all 220, 230 around there. Amistad definitely is long.
Yeah,
And then Saving Private
that
Ryan's
was
almost three
interesting.
hours. So like honestly, it might have been Always.
Jeez. Munich's almost 3 hours too.
Oh, and Always is 2 hours and 2 minutes. So like I just thought it was interesting because like this is an hour and 55 minutes, and I'm like, that shocked me because I was prepared to sit there for two and a
Wow.
half hours today to watch this. And I'm like, wait, this isn't 2.5 hours. Um, but I agree. This would have had to been at least 20 minutes extra because you get a
Hmm.
little bit of them fighting back with the one ship, but they were already defeated at that point. That
Yeah,
was kind of just
yeah,
like we need this. Like we
yeah,
killed them, but no, you didn't. The viruses did. Viruses kill the aliens. But like I didn't like I don't hate the ending, and I recalled hating the ending the first time I watched it because like I've read the book.
mm,
I know how this is supposed to end. I just didn't feel
mm,
like if Hollywood changes endings all the time. They didn't decide to change this one.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
they
I
changed
do,
Marilyn's whole life.
yeah, I feel like thematically though, in the end, it does actually make sense. I just feel like probably
Yeah,
for most people narratively, it's not going to make them feel very satisfied.
which is why it's rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, and it also come out when we're going back to the start of the conversation. One of the reasons I think it's low in the audience score is because it came out at a time when Tom Cruise was really hated, not just not looked at so positively because of the
You know
whole
what?
jumping on Oprah's couch thing,
Yeah.
and
What's even funnier though, Adam? My wife looked this up. This was the number four highest grossing film of the year.
yeah,
So people
yeah,
complained
right.
about it, but they still
That's
went and saw it. So
they do it well. Look at Marvel movies; they still make 300 400 million, and people go, "This shit." I mean, people keep going back to them because they
this
keep making
movie's
them.
mid. Love and Thunder makes $800.
Yeah, yeah. This movie sucks,
Or
and people are whinging about it now.
Transformers is dog shit. Then why do they keep making $1 billion?
Fast and the Furious. These movies suck. Let's make 1.2 billion every time we make one. Yeah,
So people will complain about crap, except for now. I feel like one thing is true is that studios cannot rely upon stupid dumbass movies to make a ton of money anymore. Cause like
anymore. Yeah, yeah.
because like even great movies aren't making money
Oh God,
unless
yeah.
you're Tom
It's
Cruise.
yeah.
You make $1.5 billion with a Top Gun sequel.
And guess what? we'll get another one because of that. 1,000% we'll get another Top Gun movie.
I really don't want to because like Maverick was like, we can end this now. We're happy. We're good. Nope.
Tom Cruise is going to be 80 flying jets, man. He's going to be 80 flying jets, jumping out of planes. He's, man.
Yep.
He's a proper movie star.
But obviously, we had quite a lot to say about War of the Worlds. And I hope you all check it out because I do honestly feel like this is one of his more underwatched, like big budgeted films.
Yeah.
I don't think a whole lot of people talk about Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds a whole lot. And I'm actually so glad that I am doing Spielberg and rewatching all these films because like I said before, I have a whole new appreciation for this very specific time period in Spielberg's career that he then throws off a cliff with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I just feel like he was on such a roll because then he had Munich after this, and then he had Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I will admit, I'm not somebody that hates that movie, but like,
I don't hate it. No,
it's not on the same level as the other three Indiana Jones movies.
God, no.
But it just was
actually there's parts of it that are really great. There are parts of that film that are fantastic. It doesn't matter. Sorry.
It's just he's indestructible. When did Indiana Jones become indestructible? I thought he got his ass kicked every movie. He usually does.
They've turned him into John McClane.
God,
superhero.
So that's a whole other conversation, but I still am a fan of Live Free and Die Hard. But the biggest thing about that movie is they made him indestructible. And then the fifth one, I will not even talk about. That does not exist to me.
I won't watch him past 3 because I loved 3 and I've heard nothing bad about good. Oh no, number 4 was when they turned him to the superhero, wasn't it? When he was jumping off that friggin' jet.
Onto a highway.
Yeah.
So
Kevin Smith and Timothy Olyphant.
But go check out War of the Worlds. Show it some love. And here's some other things you go check out. So I know, Adam, you had a couple of things that you wanted to talk about.
I did. First one I'll try and mention briefly is Solar Opposites on Hulu in America, Disney Plus here in Australia. Justin Roiland, creator of Rick and Morty, co-created this show. Very similar animation style, even voices. For me, it's in season 3 or finished season 3 at the moment. It is a much more accessible show than Rick and Morty. It is funnier. It's just better in pretty much every aspect for me. I love Solar Opposites. It's fantastic. And there's also these little side stories of little people living in a wall, which is just, I want that to be its own spin-off series because it's fan-friggin-tastic. It's so great. It's just so great.
The Wall is the best show on television.
It really is. Yep. We don't even need the Solar Opposites. We just need The Wall. So great.
Oh my God. The fact that this weird animated series about a crew of aliens doing weird stuff on our planet has a subplot that's one of the legit best stories in television.
It
is really the weirdest thing possible. And yes, I'm waiting for them to just make its own show.
If that wall was a live action show, I reckon it would go close to outdoing Game of Thrones. Like, it's just so detailed, in depth. The politics involved, the death, the murder, the twists. It's just phenomenal. It's so great.
It does have everything Game of Thrones has, except more consistent quality.
It's just such a fantastic show.
And
I love it.
Some of these episodes are amazing. Like there's an episode you find out basically the idea is this group of aliens is sent off from their dying planet, but there's like 99 other groups of them, and the episode where you find out what happened to the rest of them. That is the highest rated episode, I'm pretty sure, on IMDb.
Right. That doesn't surprise me.
It is hilarious. And then they have a Christmas special about Jingle All the Way. And they just released a Halloween special. Oh, I love this show. The first
Mm,
season took me a little bit to get my feet under, and then I think by the end of the first season, I'm like, I love this show.
yeah,
And then the second season, I'm like, I love
yeah,
this show. And then I'm like, when's the third season coming?
yeah,
And it just
yeah.
got renewed for a fifth.
Oh, fantastic! That makes me
So
happy. Thank
not
you
only
for
had it
telling
been
me that.
renewed
That's
for a fourth
great news.
already, they're just like, oh, you're going to get a fifth one too.
Yeah, that's
So
brilliant. But
it's
it's
great.
also not scared to poke fun of itself. It takes the piss out of Hulu. There's a lot of in joke Hulu jokes in there.
Lululand.
It's Hulu, yeah, they go to Hulu land. Oh man, there's just so much greatness to that show.
Yeah, the meta
Yeah,
humor and the fourth wall breaking humor is so
yeah,
funny. Taking digs at Disney and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah, yeah.
that.
It does, yeah.
Oh man.
And you got Tiffany Haddish does the voice of the computer, I
Yeah,
think.
their computer
Um,
randomly. And
yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
just
like the lead alien is literally just Justin Roiland's voice.
it's Rick. Yeah, it's Rick. Yeah.
And
Thomas Middleditch is
yeah,
Yumulak. Yeah.
I love
But they
that.
live in this. They live in a normal town, like a normal world where it's just. But they're accepted. Like these aliens live in town, so the entire town is kind of shit scared because there's a whole episode where they leave and the town just go and act like they normally would because the aliens aren't there to put them in
Yeah,
place. Right?
and
That was a great episode.
better place because the aliens are there because they
Yeah.
skipped into acting good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Oh my god. This past season was amazing. There's so
It
many great
really was.
episodes. And there's so many
Yeah.
weird pop culture references in it.
Yeah.
So I just love the running gag at the beginning. It's like, yeah, that's me. I'm the one talking with the pupa there. There's the pupa. And then everything else that he says is completely different every episode.
Yep. Yep. Every time. Yeah. So
Great.
good.
Them waiting in the line episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like it's a professional sport.
Yes. Oh my god.
Uh,
But yeah, so check out Solar Opposites. There's three full seasons and two holiday specials on Hulu already. So have some content to check out.
yeah.
But what were the
Nice
films
binge
you wanted to
watcher.
talk about?
The one film I'm going to keep with the theme of Spielberg and horror season, it is being October. I recently have delved into some horror films because of my daughter. She loves them, and I was never a horror movie fan, so I've gone back to watch some old 70s and 80s stuff. And yeah, I want to talk about Poltergeist. Spielberg produced, not directed by, but produced by
Produced.
Spielberg. Um, Basically, my letterbox review says what I'm about to say. In that, if you love Spielberg and you wanted to see how Spielberg will make a horror movie, especially during his peak '80s period, around E.T., Close Encounters, um, Indiana Jones time,
Mhm.
Poltergeist is exactly will meet every expectation that you have on how Spielberg would make a horror film. It's wholesome, it's funny, it's family based. No absent father because Craig T. Nelson is very present in this film.
Maybe he did
Um,
direct it then.
maybe not. Maybe not. Toby Hooper, is it Tobe or Tobe pronounced Toby Hooper? He's the one that directed it. I've never heard of him before or since. Um, but it has all those great elements. It's also got an awesome exorcist woman who I've seen in a few films come in. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. And there's some properly horrific scenes in there with just amazing set designs,
And of course,
amazing effects. Just
Native
brilliant.
American burial grounds. Gotta do crap
Yes.
like that, people.
Yeah.
That's why we can't have
Well, it
nice
wasn't even
things.
Native Americans. Isn't it just they built these properties on I don't spoil too much, but built these properties on graveyards and didn't only removed the headstones. Uh, it's
This is why humans
phenomenal
can't have
film.
nice things because we do stupid crap like
Yeah,
this all the time.
we do stupid shit. All greed and all for money. Yeah, I immediately went out and bought the 4K because the 4K was just released
Mm.
because of its 40th anniversary this year. And we're getting an ET 4K too for its 40th anniversary really soon, which I'm pretty psyched about.
Nice.
Um, yeah, yeah, Poltergeist, check it out. It's a great time of year to watch it.
And Poltergeist is one of the three biggest. Did they direct this?
Yeah,
Examples between this, V for Vendetta, because there's a lot of speculations that the Wachowskis actually directed V for
yeah,
Vendetta.
yeah.
And then Dread, which a lot of people, because written by Alex Garland,
Ah,
probably directed by Alex Garland, which
all right.
that makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. But for now, his official first film's Ex Machina. So,
Yeah,
but
don't talk about men. That's for sure. Oh my god,
no, that is quite the interesting conversation for everybody, isn't it?
it is.
Was quite an experience. That was one of the hard. I saw a press screening of that and walking out of it, and like you promised them some like pull quotes and stuff like that afterwards. I'm just like, what to say about what I just watched? And then got in an argument with one of my friends, Paige, for the whole ride home, all 30 minutes. So, but
Yeah,
my two
I think.
things I want to recommend, these are two things that I watched last night. And these are the only two things that I wanted to recommend that I watched since I recorded last. Because watched a lot of things I was pretty disappointed with. But Werewolf by Night, if you
Oh,
love
nice.
if you love Universal horror, this is such a wonderful homage to those old Universal creature feature horror films. And Michael Giacchino, who is why is he allowed to be that talented? Like
How
one of
can
the
he?
greatest
And he,
composers, and then just
yeah,
rolls up and like, I'm gonna direct this. And I like they have people's limbs getting lopped off and stuff like that. And apparently his response was like, well, I just kept doing stuff and nobody told me no.
is that right?
So
That's cool. That's great. I
and,
can't believe this guy. Like he's my favorite composer, Michael Giacchino, and then I'm like, I was like, really? And I checked out the trailer. I'm like, oh, this trailer actually looks pretty good. But trailers can be deceiving.
yeah.
And then I watched it. I'm like, this is so brilliantly, probably one of the best directed pieces of film I've seen this year. It's so great.
Yeah.
Blew me away.
And Gail Garcia Bernal, love him.
Yeah,
And my wife got
yeah.
so mad though when you find out his full name's Jack Russell. She's just like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm just like,
Yeah.
he is a dog person. Which here's the thing. One of one of the challenges is that you know he's a werewolf from the start,
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
they're trying to play it off as like this mystery and like uh, is it? And then but because basically the idea of this is this group of hunters are hunting down a beast to earn an artifact, the Bloodstone. When you, like, I know they showed in the trailer, but I don't want to talk about it a whole lot. But when you find out what they're hunting and how that turns out in this is amazing. And that character
yeah.
better be in a whole bunch of other Marvel stuff moving forward.
He's the new Groot, right? I think he's the new Groot.
But like
Do you want to?
scarier.
Do you want to
So,
get sushi? He's like, yeah, we'll get sushi.
was it Ted?
Yeah, Ted. Yeah.
Ted. Yeah, I'll just call Ted's a great character. When you find out who
Mm,
Ted is, Ted's great. But
Ted's awesome.
between Bernal and Laura Connolly, who
Mm,
plays Elsa Bloodstone, she was great. And for 55 minutes, like this gave me a lot. And there's
yeah,
amazing
yeah.
direction and some amazing choices because how they reveal the transformation was such an inspired choice of like the
Yeah.
shadow and everything.
Uh,
And oh, there's some
I
great.
want to.
Now I want to go watch.
I want to
Yeah.
see more from this world. I love that Marvel's taken a turn and doing something like this because Marvel is getting boring.
Mhm.
Argue with me all you want, but Marvel is getting old hat and it's starting to annoy me. Well, it's been annoying me for a few years now, to be honest, but it's even getting worse. But this is such a great turn. Phenomenal. And if you go back and watch this, Shane, you probably already took notice, but the score for this, which Giacchino did as well, obviously, is phenomenal. It's
Yep.
a phenomenal score. Yeah,
It's right
it's
out of those old Universal horror film. Like he went
yeah,
all in on this in that vein, and it paid off so much. Oh, I
yeah.
loved it. Um, it was very interesting because I've been watching Queer for Fear, which is a Shudder series about like LGBTQ plus community in horror throughout history, and like James Whale, who made Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, was a gay man. And like they spent a whole bunch of time on him in the last episode. So like I was just watching a whole bunch of old Universal horror stuff going into this too. And it just reinforced I'm like, ah, oh, this is great. And the other thing I wanted to recommend, which is a new documentary in honor of 60 years of Bond. Amazon and
Oh,
MGM put out a new documentary, The Sound of 007. And
yes.
it was on Amazon. And basically, it's an ode to all the Bond themes and the scores throughout the 60 years of James Bond. And my one thing was they didn't even talk about Die Another Day. They didn't even mention Madonna once in the whole entire 90 minutes. But they took a deep dive into John Barry. One of my favorite
Okay.
stories is Michael Caine is in it. And he's telling stories like, I was living on John Barry's couch and I was the first one to hear the song Goldfinger. And I heard it every
Ah,
night. And like just not only is it like the history of Bond music, but they spend a lot of time very specifically on the creation of No Time to Die because it was like they had a bunch of like Billie Eilish and Phineas recording and stuff like that. Oh my God, they had Hans Zimmer just hamming it up because what a clown that guy is for
yeah.
real though.
I've seen him. Yeah, I saw him talking when he was about the in the June special features about. Yeah, he seemed like a cool guy actually.
He's just like to his crew, and he's just like, you know, we make noise for a living, but we make some of the best noise in the world, don't we? And I'm just like this guy. But like you even had like Carrie Fukunaga just being like, I wanted something like this, and I told Hans, and I'm walking out the door, and he's like, do you mean like this? And he just starts playing something. He's just like, yes, what was that? I'm like, I don't know. Did anybody record that? And
That's
like
fantastic.
there's a lot of great behind the scenes moments like that, but it's a really cool dive into like the themes of James Bond and like Live and Let Die and Duran Duran. They so
Oh
one of
yeah, they
my
did.
second favorite story is the fact that the lead singer of Duran Duran negged his way into making a Bond theme because he saw
Did he
Cubby
really?
Broccoli at a restaurant or something and went up to me. He's like, so Cubby, when are you going to start making good Bond themes again? And he straight up said, do you want to make one? And that's how Mutual
Ah,
Kill happens.
that's fantastic. On Visual Daughter, that's probably the worst Bond movie made too, right? I don't remember the song.
Oh my god, that's the worst part because View to a Kill is one of the best Bond themes. It's a banger, and
Mm,
they gave it to the dumbest, silliest trash movie
yeah.
that they've made in the franchise. Because like I've been watching James Bond movies since I was like 6 years old. I am a huge Bond fan,
Mm,
and
hmm.
this was
So
if you love music and especially if you love Bond, this is a must-watch documentary. So throwing that out
yeah,
there.
I just added it to my list. There's another one on Amazon Prime that's actually live. The Sound of Bond live from Albert Hall. I don't know if you've seen that on Prime.
Well,
It's only an
you know
hour
what?
long.
There's a whole section, 60th anniversary of Bond section right now.
Okay.
So, well, I got to go
Ah,
check that out.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
I've got
probably a
both of them. Just added
companion
to my
piece,
list.
them doing a concert of it. But obviously, we had a lot of things to recommend to all of you people watching the show this week and listening. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. And Adam, thank you so much, as always, for coming on.
As always, a pleasure. Loved it. Thank
And
you.
it'll be back in a month and a half. Let's talk about Bridge
Yes.
Spies. But for next week, I will be having who's on from Munich? I got Jake from Sif Pop coming on to talk about Munich, which another
Ooh.
one that I've only seen once. So this is going to be my second viewing of Munich, like War of
It's a
the
list of
Worlds.
shame. List of shame for me. I might have to check it out very soon.
Yeah, because like I've been on a streak. The past couple I had only watched once. I had watched The Terminal once when I was 13 and hated it because it wasn't Shrek
Mm-hmm.
2, and my aunt dragged me to see The Terminal instead. So it's one of my favorite toy
That's
stores to
great.
sell because I'm still mad about it. Could have saw Shrek 2, saw The Terminal. But as an adult, I appreciated The Terminal a lot more. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.